it's all for play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to For the Love of Paul McGrath podcast. And Friday, the 8th of August, the news dropped. Well, two bits of news dropped, I suppose. Evan Gassand signed for Aston Villa, but the other more curious piece was that there was a spurious link to Alexis Saelemaekers from AC Milan. Now, I can't remember who it was that linked us, but it was an Italian journalist linked us to Saelemaekers. And it got me thinking, and it made me want to do a piece on him just because of the type of player he is. As a bit of a caveat, and as I suppose a bit of a disclaimer, I have no idea if this transfer is going to go through. I'm going to put this one in spurious transfer bucket. Reason being is it hasn't been picked up by anyone else. Now, that doesn't mean it isn't going to happen, but the biggest reason I think this one may not happen is it just seems a small little bit far-fetched. Not that he's like too expensive, not that he's a player that won't get into this Aston Villa team or doesn't have a benefit to this team in a certain ways, but it just seems to be that he could be a player that might if it is as it was mentioned that it could be a proper full transfer. Given our PSR and our SCR situation, I just don't know. I put it this way: it's hard to gauge anything with regards to transfers at the moment, given the lack of knowledge about our financial settings, and that's a killer with regards to this. So that's my little caveat before I go further and we talk about it. But forget all about that. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about this guy as if it is a viable transfer, because the type of player he is, I think, is really, really interesting. He's very much a versatile Swiss Army knife utility player. And we'll see that in a moment when I go down through his statistics. Now, I'll talk to you about a specific type of player that is very much a player that can be in. The type of player can be very much a type of player that can be in fashion 1 year, out of fashion for 4 or 5 years, back in fashion again. And it's all really depending on the manager's style of play. It all really depends on you know what the the style of player is very manager dependent. That's what I'm trying to get at here. Without trying to elaborate anymore, because we'll kind of go into it in a moment with regards to the type of player he is. But let's talk a small bit about his statistics. So, oops. I don't know why that went all the way up on the screen there. So let me just try, and there we go. That's much better here. So let's talk a little bit about his statistics here. Alexis Saelemaekers. I'll bring up his stats here. So first of all, sorry, I'm a bit distracted here because there's flies and moths and everything flying around my room, and also my dog is beside me. And for whatever reason, for a dog that's usually lovely and clean, he's incredibly stinky tonight, whatever's going on. So I do apologize. For my distracted nature in the first nearly 4 minutes of this podcast. And there, somebody, LJ says, I like the honesty. Well, there's even more honesty for you as well. I've got a smelly dog here with me somewhere along the line. Actually, I might change to this one. That's a better view. I think that's a bit of a better view there. And I'll take this off the screen so you guys will be able to see me. Move myself around the screen. I can't. Right, so Alexis Saelemaekers, it's a confusing graphic with him being in a Roma shirt, AC Milan badge there. So obviously he is an AC Milan player, was on loan at Roma. We'll talk about that in a moment. Also was on loan the year previous at Bologna and started his career at Anderlecht. That's where he got his first foray into senior football, should I say, and then he moved from Anderlecht on to, as I say, Bologna, or into AC Milan. AC Milan then went on loan the last 2 years to Bologna and to Roma. And really the reason that he went on loan is because it kind of AC Milan were trying to find a manager that would work for them. and they couldn't really do it. Paulo Fonseca came in, didn't really cut mustard. Sergio Conceição came in, they thought he was the guy, didn't really cut mustard. And then they've got Allegri. They have Allegri in there now, and he's a different type of manager again, a really, really good manager, don't get me wrong. But I think Saelemaekers is probably at a stage in his career, just turned 26 years of age, where he wants more football and probably wants to leave AC Milan. Doesn't want to be the bit part player that he has been in times gone by. And I think that's something to bear in mind with regards to why this link may be coming up. It could be agent driven. But when we look at him here, I want to take a quick look at his statistics. I don't like this view. I'm going to go back to my old view. When we take a little look at his statistics here, we're going to go down through them here. I have shown him in comparison with who've kind of played as our right midfielders or right wingers last year. We're also going to take a look at him in comparison with our right backs as well, because he's a very versatile player, as I mentioned before. You guys will have read everything on Twitter the second after this was announced. Everybody was going on Twitter saying he can play right wing back, he can play right wing back. And yes, he can, and yes, he has. And you can see there by his heat map that he was utilised as a right wing back / right back. But that doesn't tell the full story as to why he was utilised there. It doesn't tell the full story of his skill set. And yes, it shows his versatility. But this guy, I'm going to say it, this guy has done a lot of his work, if not some of the best of his work that I saw last year, came from that left-hand side, that left-hand attacking midfielder position. This guy can play on both wings, and he's incredibly, he's been, I won't say productive from the point of assists and goals, but he's been productive from the point of goal creating actions and shot creating actions in both of those areas of the field. Whether he has been played as that touchline hugger, whether he has been played by the Roma manager as a as an inverting fullback, but he has been somebody who's been allowed to come into that middle of midfield and then dart back out into that right midfield position. He's shown his ability to cross the ball. He's shown his ability to carry the ball. He's shown his ability to make through balls. And the reason that I say that is that I watched 6 of his games. So I watch quite a bit of Serie A. And the reason being, I've said this in the podcast quite a bit before. The reason I watch a good bit of Serie A is it's on later on a Sunday night, and usually football, English football is over, and then there's Serie A on. And if there's no NFL on at the same time, I will inevitably turn on the Serie A. So I've seen him play a good bit from Milan down through the years. I saw him play for Roma last year also as well, but I didn't want to go on my past thinkings and my past understandings of him. So I went back today, and as you guys know, I've got some scouting software, and I loaded up his clips from there, just specifically his clips from 6 games. So what I did was I watched the last game that they played of the season for Roma. All these games were for Roma that I watched. So the last game of the season, and the reason I did that, the reason I watched all these games for Roma is because he started the season at Milan. He had a bad ankle injury, I'm going to say, which required surgery in September, and it kept him out until late November, and then he worked his way back to fitness, and that's why he went out on loan last season, predominantly to Roma. That's why he went out on loan, was to build up his fitness, and he had quite a productive time at Roma, I must say, playing in their European campaign as well, and also playing in La Liga. So the games I watched were Torino the last day of the season. I watched the 2 games they played against Lazio, both home and away. I watched their game against Bilbao in the Europa League. I watched their game against Napoli, and I watched their game against Bologna. So reasons for that is Torino last game of the season. I nearly always watch the last game of the season just to see what he was like at the end of the year. So I watched that game. I watched the two Lazio games because Rome derby. Of course, why wouldn't you watch them? Bilbao because it was European competition playing against that team. And then I watched the game against Napoli because Napoli were streets ahead of every other team in Serie A last year. And then lastly, Bologna. Watched the Bologna game, and the reason being is because we played them in the Champions League last season. That was my reasons for watching those games. And what I saw from him, and we'll dig into the statistics. I might take them down for a moment, actually, because they're a bit distracting. So we'll take them down for a minute just to talk about these games. But the reason that or what I saw from those games was saw a lot of great work from the left-hand side and the right-hand side predominantly, obviously showing his utility player ability. He scored. I've got some notes written down here if you're wondering what I'm looking at. He had 2 assists from the right-hand side. Actually, he had 3 assists from the right-hand side. He assisted a goal in the last day of the season, crossing the ball into the back post for against Torino. He scored a goal from the left-hand side, for against Torino. Ball was crossed in from the right-hand side by somebody else, and he got a head on the ball and scored a header last day of the season against Torino. Against Lazio, in both games against Lazio, he had an assist from the left-hand side. He had a very simple carry and a simple layoff pass that was an assist from that left-hand side for a goal against Lazio in the away leg. In the home leg, in the away game, in the home game against Lazio, he took on a shot. He came in from the right-hand side, which is very similar to a goal that he scored against Bologna. Came in from that right-hand side, really hugged the touchline, worked his way in field, dribbled into the box, took a shot with his right foot. The goalkeeper saved it in the Lazio game, followed up and put it away with his left foot. So showed his ambidextrousness, ambidexterity, if that I presume is probably the right word. There being able to take the initial shot with his right foot, then followed up with his left foot and put it in the back of the net, which is good to see. Scored a similar goal, as I said, against Bologna. Hugged that right touchline, was there as an outlet, looking like more he was kind of that right wing back type of situation. He got down the touchline, cut in across the box, and just got to the edge of the area, came across the box and scored from outside the box with his left foot. Now, goalkeeper probably could have done a bit better with it, but it was still a goal, and he did really well to work it in that game. And it must have been just the games that I picked, because I saw him assist or score in every single game. Now, he didn't have an assist and a goal in every game he played last year. I just happened to pick those games completely blind and randomly based on the opposition that they played. He had an assist against Napoli as well from the right-hand side, playing more so as that right-hand side, more or less a wing back, I would say, in this instance. Crossed the ball into the back post, and I can't remember who it was scored the goal, but they scored a cracker of a volley. And then against Bilbao as well, had a very good assist. He picked up that ball in a more central area, laid off a through ball, and Roma actually scored from it as well. I think they equalized in that game against Bilbao at that side, but it showed his ability to come centrally, play the through ball inside. So I know I've dumped a lot of information there on those games, or about those games, just on his assists. But the reason I wanted to do that is I saw the versatility with my own 2 eyes, and you guys should go and watch him. Go and watch his highlights even on YouTube, because for somebody that is versatile, watching stuff like that on YouTube is still very, very, very beneficial. But let's get these statistics here as well. So as I mentioned to you, I've kind of marked him here against the right wingers / right midfielders, and I've also done it against the right backs too, because I think that this guy, I didn't do the left-hand side, maybe I should have, but you'll get a good feeling for this player regarding his statistics anyway, because his statistics very much jump off the page. Like when we're looking at this guy, when he gets in the position to finish the ball or to shoot with the ball, he's pretty decent. He doesn't take an awful lot of shots in games, but when he does, he's pretty efficient with regards to that. Overperformed his XG, which you would expect of a wing back to do. I don't talk about XG an awful lot, specifically in-game XG. I only talk about XG from the point of view of maybe seasonal statistics or over the course of a season. So I think he scored 7 times last year, if I'm not mistaken, and his XG was, I think, under 3. So you overperformed that as well. Very, very creative. It's 64 shot creating actions, which, as you can see here, equates to 4.41 per 90 minutes. So he was a really good creator from that right-hand side or left-hand side position. Also, his goal creating actions were absolutely brilliant, regardless of whether it was in a wing position or whether it was playing as a right back or a right wing back. He still created an awful lot of chances. Very creative, very adept passer, very kind of what I call is a dainty type of passer. Like, he's not going to be somebody who's going to put his foot in the ball or put his foot through it and rake one across the area. he's going to play a nice little pass, 1-2, try and get on the end of it. Pretty energetic player as well. If I remember rightly as well, he had an assist against Liverpool in pre-season. I watched the Liverpool Milan pre-season game because I wanted to take a look at Noah Okafor, and as I'm just remembering it now, I think he assisted maybe the second goal in that from the right wing back position, counter attack if I'm not mistaken, and cut the ball across the area to the penalty spot, and it was finished. An absolute rocket of a shot actually was finished past the Liverpool goalkeeper. So just another bit of context there with regards to playing against English football teams and a team as good as Liverpool there as well. Again, coming from that right hand side. So when we look at him here statistic wise, and once again, remember, statistics are only as good as what you can see on the field afterwards. So I always start off with looking at the games first, coming back to statistics, and then seeing do the two of them marry up here, because what I saw from him was very industrious in defense, very industrious. Like, we'll get back, an energetic type of player. You look there with regards to his tackles and his dribble success rates and all that. I'm not going to say that they pop off the page or off the screen when you're watching him, but it's noticeable that he doesn't shirk his defensive duties at all. What he's really good at is he's not going to be somebody who's going to make a long busting run back and then dive to the ground and make this brilliant like Konza-esque or McGrath-esque tackle or something like that. Not going to do that. He's going to be a bit cuter. He's going to corral players a small bit more. Doesn't make an awful lot of tackles. What I mean by that is he doesn't go to ground an awful lot with the ball, but he does recover the ball at a decent clip. So he's not a defender by trade, but you can see he really works in the defensive side of things, is really what I'm getting at. His biggest part of his game is really that passing side of his game, the availability in his game, and a lot of his numbers I think are kind of skewed in a lot of ways because he plays in a specific position, or what is specifically kind of an Italian position that is I can't remember how to pronounce it, so I wrote it down phonetically here, and I think I've lost it. Yeah, I think I've lost it. Oh well. But he plays in a position called a carrillo, I think is how you pronounce it. And essentially what it is it's somebody that kind of occupies the edge of the defensive third. And what they do is they're tasked with two areas. So they're either tasked with being an inverted fullback or playing actually in that midfield position, which would allow them to go out to be a right-sided midfielder. Now, not particularly a right winger, but a right-sided midfielder. It allows them to be somebody who can tuck in and cover, is very adept with tucking in and covering for a fullback, but they will cover higher up the field, if that makes sense. So an overlapping fullback goes ahead of them. They will cover maybe 10 yards north of the halfway line, so that you're not leaving all that space behind the fullback. You still have a buffer zone there. They're also somebody there that's very metronomic in midfield when they play in that midfield position. They can come in, take that ball. Essentially, they can go out wide. They're comfortable on the ball in a lot in those areas, and they really kind of suits them to. And I've been reading a book about, actually, I've read it before, I'm rereading it again, about Italian positions. You know, they've got a name for every position, like mezzala, trequartista. It's very football hipster stuff, and I don't really buy into an awful lot of it. Sometimes it's just an attacking midfielder, but I like the way that they've got a definition for everything in football, and I think that shows how the Italians absolutely live and breathe the game of football and want to understand it and become very studious about the game. Ponderous to a fault almost at times, as you can see maybe by the slower nature of their league's game. But this type of player, as I say, lends itself really to kind of like either a 4-4-2 or that magical Unai Emery 4-2-2-2 formation. But what it also does is it lends itself to in-game transitions to a 3-5-2 very easily. So if you have that fullback that's tucking in and you want to permanently tuck that fullback in, so let's say we've got a Pau Torres, Konza, we've got a backline of Matson, Pau Torres, Konza, Bogard, and then you're paying somebody like a Saelemaekers on with half an hour to go or something like that. He can play on that as that right wing backs type role. the Bogart slides across and Matson and Saelemaekers become your wing backs, and he can provide probably a more sure outlet in that wing back role than you would from, say, from both an attacking and defensive point of view, more a more metronomic type of pivot point really from that side than you would see from maybe a Garcia who's a bit undercooked maybe at the moment. Maybe that's what Unai Emery thinks at the minute, or maybe from a Matty Cash who's very much a straight line runner, I think, on that right hand side. So it gives you something different. And as I say, his versatility is there to see. Like, you look at him, he's popping up all over the field. So I'm not pigeonholing him to be a right beside a midfielder or a right wing back or whatever. As I mentioned to you there, scored a goal from a left wing position, scored 2 goals from, or scored another goal, I think, from a left wing position as well. And so he can definitely play over there. You can see by his heat map there that he was trusted to play over there for Roma too. And once again, when we look at his statistics, one of the beauties of his game and why he fits that Carrillo role so well is he very rarely gets dispossessed. He very, very rarely gets dispossessed. He's somebody that's a sure head on the ball. And I like this question. I like this question from Ometron here. How does this make sense with Cash, Garcia, and with Bailey, Malin, and Augustin playing on the right? What about the left? Well, that's if you think that number 1, Bailey is going to be here, number 2, that Gassand is going to play on that right hand side and isn't going to be shifted across the line, or maybe plays the number 10. And I think another thing to bear in mind with regards to this is, you bring this guy in, he's a versatility piece on the bench. He's not going to start every game. He's going to be somebody who can come in and change the formation. And that's what I'm trying to get at here. So if this guy, like I said it previously, I said it with regards to Gassanda, we said it when we were talking about Lamar Bogart recently, versatility is the aim of the game. It's why John McGinn is going to get offered a new contract. It's like his versatility, being able to play as that central pivot point in midfield, as a 6, as a 10, as an 8, or even out in that wide right. I think probably, you bring in somebody like this, it can be kind of like another John McGinn. Probably spells the end of Leon Bailey, which I think we all know is going to be let go. Maybe it allows for a Garcia to go out and loan this year. Maybe it spells the end of a Ross Barkley or somebody within the team. But I must stress, I don't think this guy's coming in to be like a starter straight away. This guy's going to be somebody who I think that Unai Emery can. And it's why I was talking about a fit to a system, that Unai Emery might look at this guy and go, yeah, this guy could be beneficial in my system, because he's not going to fit every single system in the world. He's certainly not the type of player that he is. And I think he'll flourish in a more deliberate style of play, which Unai Emery has. But it's a very fair comment that you have there, Ometron. Very fair comment. And I don't know as the answer, but I do think that probably 1, if not 2 of those players may not be here at the start of the season, with 1 going on loan and 1 leaving on a permanent basis. But yeah, it's definitely worth noting for sure. So when we look at him here, and you just have to see his creative ability, albeit in Serie A, but once again, his creative ability here also spans playing against quite a lot of top teams in Serie A and also playing in Europe. It dwarfs the guys that we have there. Dwarfs the guys that we have currently. Shot creating actions, goal creating actions, and they're tangible technical statistics. They're not luck. They're not a lucky break of a ball here or there. They're actual actions that a person makes to influence a game, whether a shot comes from it, whether a goal creating action comes from it, or a goal comes from it. Yes, do we have to weight them probably downwards because Serie A and the quality of our players playing in the Premier League and playing in the Champions League and so on? Yeah, we probably do, but you can only go what you see as well. And this guy has done it on both sides of the field, whether it be left or right. The pass attempts is something that I wanted to show here. The level of work that our wingers get or don't get, whatever way you want to talk about it, or our wide players get or don't get, whatever way you want to talk about it, might be something that Unai Emery wants to change. Specifically, if we talk about not being predictable in future, if we talk about going from outside to in at times to try and maybe break down a a low block, if we shift the team right across, and then instead of having that predictable raking ball that we've had previously under Unai Emery, maybe if we then go quicker to go inside, play more triangles inside, and break through the press that way, because as everybody's talking about being less predictable, if you've got somebody like this in your team that can be metronomic from the right hand side or the left hand side, kind of like Liverpool used to do initially with Trent, or with and I'm not equating this player to Trent, by the way, don't get me wrong, or with Andy Robertson, but what they would do is they would let their fullbacks dwell on the ball and then be creative kind of pivot players like Villa do with a 6, or like most teams do with that 6. And we've seen other teams do that with inverted fullbacks, which I'm not a huge fan of. I think is dying out within the game. I'm not a huge fan of the inverted fullback. It works for the top teams because they absolutely own the ball. But I think if you're only going to be 50-50 in possession, I'm yet to be fully convinced in the inverted fullback. But I could see the fullback staying in position, being and them kind of dwelling on the ball out wide. And if you think about the benefits of that, obviously if they dwell on the ball out wide, so to say, and they lose it, well, then that player is miles out on the side of the field. And I'm not talking about dwelling in it in a negative way. I'm just talking about maybe you start the attacks or your triangles there, so the whole formations shift across, and then you can kind of work through diagonally, as opposed to going long diagonally. You can work through on the ground diagonally and then break a kind of a low press, or kind of bamboozle a double, I suppose, like a low block or mid block that kind of transitions into a low block quickly, like we've seen years past of Sheffield United, of last year from an Ipswich, or from gosh, I can't even remember who else played it against us last year. But you guys know what I'm talking about there. The type of players, what I'm saying, is interesting more so than probably whether this guy actually signs for us. And when you look at him in comparison with our right back, or with our right backs currently, you can see that it's a funny one. You see he's tackling defensive statistics as a midfielder are right up there, and you can see his work. But when you come back to the mean of the actual role of right back, when you see more traditional right backs and Cash and Garcia, and I put Konza in there because he was played at right back at times last year as well, we can see his defensive work is similar to theirs, albeit not up there with the greats of the right back position within European football. But once again, what we see from this is, he's very good at recovering the ball, so he's good at winning that ball back. He doesn't have to go to ground, doesn't really intercept the ball that much, has a good pass attempt ratio, and again, he's creating actions are right up there. Also, he does like to cross the ball a bit more than Cash, and Cash does, and is up in and around there more with more that kind of more electric kind of fullback role that the Garcia played for us in those few games that we saw last year. So really, really interesting, as I say. And once again, just to highlight, and I know you guys can't really see this, but just to highlight all the different positions that he's played and in-game changes that he's had as well. You can see here, this is from FBref. When you go into the match logs in FBref, you can see they chart the positions that players played in every game over the course of a season. And you can see here, like, he's even played as a striker at times, or in a more forward role, should I say. But left midfield, forward role, wing back, left back, wing back. Played in 3 different roles here against Cagliari. Played wing back. So you can see predominantly he was played as a wing back, but he's popped up in quite a lot of areas and quite a lot of positions for Roma. And once again, for a team that will probably struggle in Europe to name 25 players in our squad because of the homegrown players rule. Although that might change now with the under-18s coming up and the amount of time that they've been at the club, and whether Unai Emery wants to utilize those. Having somebody like this that can play multiple positions kind of takes that headache off your plate, or even allows you to have him on the bench and maybe go with a different split between attackers and defenders on the bench too. So again, I want to stress, I have no idea whether this is actually going to come to fruition. Absolutely no idea if this is going to come to fruition. But it was more the type of player that I want to discuss here. There was another player that I am going to actually Google. I should have got this. It's just after popping into my mind. Swedish player. I don't remember his name at all. I'm literally Googling Benfica Swedish player bald to see if I can get. That's not going to do it. That keeps on bringing up Victor Lindelof for whatever reason. I can't remember his name, but there was actually he was Norwegian. Probably that's why I couldn't get his name. What was his name? Frank Arsenis is who it was. Yes, Frederick Arsenis. That's who it was. And we were linked with him 2 years ago. And I thought, and to be honest with you, the links in Portugal were a lot were a lot stronger than anything that ever came out of England. And the reason that I bring his name up is he's a similar type of player, do everything type of player, or player that if you told him in the morning he was going to be playing left back, he played there. If you told him in the morning he was going to be playing striker, he played there. And you know, those Swiss Army knives, they're few and far between. They only work in certain setups. And if there was as much truth in that rumor with Frederick Arsenis from Benfica, well, then maybe there might be as much truth in this as well. And we, you know, as we know, we didn't sign Frederick Arsenis from Benfica at that stage. But who knows what will happen with Saelemaekers. So look, it's more the type of player and the interesting nature that this player brings, more so than the validity of the signing or not, that I wanted to discuss here. But look, all transfer rumors will be discussed as much as we possibly can. Just in the absence of proper news, we will discuss potential and ridiculous news at times as well. But if there is something to go on this guy, I'll certainly come back and do more. And I've been speaking to Nima Tovarelli from the Italian football podcast as well about this guy, and he's going to try and turn over a few rocks around, because he's an Inter Milan fan and covers Inter Milan quite a lot. He's going to uncover a few rocks around Milan, see about the validity of this rumor, and get back to me. So, but I'm not one that wants to break news or anything. If I do hear anything, I will pop it up on Twitter and let you guys know. So that's Alexis Saelemaekers, guys. Thank you so much for your time, and also thank you so much for the interaction you guys are showing with Villa AM as well. There will be another Villa AM out tomorrow morning, and we will cover all the bits of news that Aston Villa have been thrown up for Aston Villa in a podcast. In the news part of the podcast is under 8 minutes, but sometimes if there's adverts or anything added in, it does go a bit longer, but it'll be under 10 minutes usually anyway, and it's a bite-sized piece for your morning perusal of all things the day previous in Aston Villa. So thanks so much, everybody. Really appreciate your time, really appreciate everything. And we've got Marseille on the horizon tomorrow, so we will be back with bits and pieces on that. Whether we will be able to do a full team sheet tantrum and post-match, I don't know. I have a very special date with my daughter tomorrow evening, which may trump all, and I'm really looking forward to taking her and having making some memories tomorrow afternoon with her. So it may cut into my team sheet tantrum time, but look, as I say, family comes first, and we'll get this out of the way in the preseason before we get into the season proper the week afterwards. But thanks so much, everybody, for your time. Stay safe, stay healthy.